Hello and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name is Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. Thanks so much for coming and checking out this video. Hopefully you guys enjoy. We've got a big guide for you today. We're going to jump into so much about the Dark Knight, but before we do, check the pinned comment or in the link in the description. That way you can actually just go and copy and paste all of my macros. As a part of everything Endwalker and going forward, I actually set up all of my layouts as these macros, which you can just execute and instantly set your skills just like you see them here in this video. The good side or the plus side of this is that as changes are made to these jobs, to these classes, to these skills, you'll be able to get the latest updates from me if you so wish. This will hopefully be a handy way of setting your skills and then going about editing it to your heart's content, making it something that really works for you. So check out the link in the description or in the pinned comments, and that will help you get to this much quicker and save you all kinds of time. Also, as a note, if you guys are new or if you're looking for more controller guides, especially as it relates to Final Fantasy XIV, be sure to check the Endwalker controller guide playlist. I have a Shadowbringers playlist, so if your job has yet to be updated for Endwalker, you can always use that as a good starting point, but this will be a good, easy way that you guys can find all of what you need for the current build. Plus, as new guides are made or changes are made that maybe fundamentally change how the job actually works, you can always check back that playlist as well, and I'll be sure to have any kind of addendums that are necessary for you. And being that these guides can actually take a little bit longer to make, I encourage you maybe to check out the Balance Discord if you're looking for really up-to-date stats, min-maxing tips and tricks and more. They do such a fantastic job. Go check them out, and that's just going to be the best plug that I can give you in this video alone. Today we're going to talk about various things, and you can use the chapter markers here in YouTube to jump to any specific section that you need. I don't know why I struggle with that word. It's just a word I struggle with all the time. But what you can do is that we're going to talk about setting up the controller. If you've already got your controller set up, or if you've ever used any of my guides before, you can pretty much skip this section and just jump right into the skill overview if you were looking for that. Or if you're just looking for the logic and how I use my layout, that's going to be there for you as well. We'll talk about my HUD setup, and then finally we'll talk about macros, ground targeting options, which is a big change for Dark Knight, and any kind of glamour gear questions you might have towards the end of this video. So thank you so much for being here. If you guys enjoy these videos, hit that like button, really does help the channel out. Join the amazing 20% of you who've hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, let's set up our controller for controller play. If you're new to Final Fantasy XIV, it can be as simple as toggling this switch for you right here. This is going to help give you just two completely different setups. The nice thing is that even if you're in keyboard and mouse, I can still use my controller to move around. You're not having to compromise your settings and your input for no matter how you decide you want to have these various toggles. The controller itself, I think it's really critical that you go and use, and this is just my personal preference, legacy type movement. If you use standard type movement, which you can see here is actually set up for keyboard and mouse, if I press back on the stick, it means I'm going to walk backwards, but legacy means that I can kind of run around in my preferred kind of method itself. So just note that there's a lot of things that you can kind of play with here. I do have a complete controller guide on this channel that walks you through each and every bit of this detail if you want to get really into the weeds, but ultimately I want to focus here on your target and your filters. I have automatically lock on target turned off. The reason I have it turned off is that you can actually manually do that yourself. If I actually just click on the left stick, you can have it lock on target. So personally, my personal preference is to have that off, especially as the tank. I don't like to be locked in unless I'm struggling to locate my target somewhere on the screen. Also, I have switched target to circle instead of target select turned off. This allows me to soft target, meaning if I have a target here, this is a hard target when it's locked in with this little arrow. But if I press left and right on the D-pad, it actually creates this little circle arrow, and that's kind of soft targeting. And I like to have that on. If you switch this and turn it on and you hit apply, everything then becomes a hard target switch. So it just jumps right to it. Ultimately, again, a personal preference that you can decide for yourself. Under filters is really where you're going to have the best benefit as a player. I recommend when your weapon is drawn, focusing on enemies. The reason you don't want to have party members in this list is because party members can actually be targeted via the up and down D-pad when your right trigger or left trigger is not being held. So it gives you that flexibility. Now within the world of Dark Knight, or within the world of a tank, you can attack. I'm gonna go and pick on this guy over here. And here you can see I've got a couple of enemies on my list, and you can actually see where I've got hate and where I don't. So if I hold down LB, I can press up and down to easily cycle through my enemies list and be able to find the target that I need first and foremost. As a tank, it probably would help if I turned on my tank stance, which is going to generate the hate and what's going to put me at the top of the list. The other thing you can usually look at is that your party list to see where you're ranking in terms of damage whenever you're targeting a different enemy. So that is something that you should be able to know. And you can also, while targeting or holding down left or right trigger, you can use the bumpers to be able to target different enemies as well. And again, that's with the weapon out. If I put my weapon away, I can target, well, if there's other things to target, you would see them, but you can't in this case. So just note that you have that flexibility with the left bumper and right bumper when your left trigger and right trigger is held. Then in my hotbar settings, I have display recast timers, hide unassigned slots. You can turn that on if you want, and you're going to get a lot of little gray boxes. If you follow my HUD layout, I say display hotbar numbers. I have that turned off, so I don't have these floating little numbers out there. Enable pet hotbar cycling, include pet hotbar when cycling. Enable drag and drop repositioning, as well as various hotbars of various shapes and sizes, and we'll cover a little bit more of that in the HUD layout. Under sharing, especially this is true for all of my jobs, everything from 1 through 5 here on the hotbars is not shared, but 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are, meaning no matter what job or class I play, I have that all those skills are always going to show up there. For my controller though, on the cross hotbar, I only have 7 and 8 shared. Everything 1 through 6 is custom to the job itself. Under cross, I have always display cross hotbar. I have to turn to off display hotbar help, but you can turn this on. If I hit apply, what does that look like? Hold down the trigger. You'll see the names of the abilities themselves. I turn that off for myself because I've been playing it enough. I know it. So feel free to use that until you don't need it. If you don't want it at some point, you can always turn it off right there. Now going under here, I have hold. If you are struggling with comfort levels, maybe check out toggle or mixed. You will lose out on features like the expanded cross hotbar by double tapping left and right. You can see how I can get into that, or holding down L trigger and then right trigger. I can get to various other hotbars, which are all linked here in the custom tab, and I'll show you that here in a second. I also have always display the WHXB, that's the double tap hotbar. I have returned to the normal hotbar after the double tap. So if you see here, if I use blood weapon, without doing anything else, I am ready to go, and I'm still back into my main rotation right there. And then you can adjust your input timer if you so desire. If you're struggling with that double tap, you can play around with this to find something hopefully a little bit more comfortable for your play style. Under custom, my expanded, that's that left trigger, right trigger that you see here. That is actually set to 2 left and 2 right. If you hold down R bumper, you can set any specific hotbar at ease. So if I jump into 2, this is essentially that. It's my quick action to get to my second hotbar. To get to my third hotbar, that's the W cross hotbar, and I actually have it enabled with the directional buttons. If you don't need them, you can always turn them off and have a little bit cleaner of a UI. Ultimately, it's up to you. That's set to 3 left and 3 right. You'll notice that you cannot drag and drop skills onto there. That will not work. It will not like you. It will complain. But if you want to work within there, you have to actually go to this specific, I got it right that time, awesome, set here. So I can only control, I can only add items and skills that way. Just as a quick tip from your actions and traits, if you do not have access to a mouse, you can go into your actions and traits. You can press your main menu button that essentially brings up subcommands, and it will allow you to bind your skills by setting them in the correct position. And you can always hold down the left trigger or right trigger and then press the select button or the back button, and that will give you the ability to edit and move your skills all without the need of a controller. Double pressing the selection and setting it again will give you the option to delete a skill as well. If you want a little bit more control and flexibility, hold down the L1 button and press the R3 button, and it will turn on virtual mouse mode. This will take your right stick and turn it into a mouse, and it will take your left trigger and your right trigger and turn that into the ability to drag and drop. This will give you the ability to set skills on your hotbars with ease without the need of actually plugging in a mouse. And with that actually brings us to our Dark Knight skill overview. Let's just go through it. This is me just telling you what these skills do, hopefully to help give you that insight into the job and what skills that you want to prioritize at any particular moment. Now, Hard Slash, this is your level 1 ability. It has an attack potency of 170, and all these numbers are right now being displayed as a level 90 job. Note that as you level and as you play, various traits will have an impact of what these skills ultimately look like. So don't worry and stress about if your numbers look different from mine. That could also be a function of the time of this recording if future updates change any of these values. So just keep in mind, this is just your base core Endwalker information now. Siphon Strike delivers a potency of 120. It's going to combo off a Hard Slash. With that combo, you get actually a potency of 260, and it's going to restore your MP. Unleash, this is great for just pulling in any of your enemies in a circle around you. If you're the tank, if you're the main tank in a dungeon, Unleash is going to be really your big friend. That's 120 damage to all enemies nearby. In fact, if I use that, you can see here that beautiful AoE effect. So it's going to pull in a lot of people around you. Grit is your tank stance. You turn this on and it's going to make you the top threat on the board. So just note that if you are the tank, you're going to want to have Grit turned on. You can turn this on and off. It does have a 10-second recast time, so pay attention to that. Unmend is a great ranged ability. You can use this anytime you want. It's got that potency of 150. It's going to increase your enmity. It's going to reduce the recast time of Plunge by 5 seconds. So especially if you have to run away from the boss or any kind of enemies for a period of time, you can always be unmending, always be casting ABC. It's a great way to increase your damage output on any job out there. Soul Eater, this is going to combo off a Siphon Strike. This is going to have a potency with the combo at 340. It's going to restore your own HP. It's also going to have a cure potency of 300, and it's going to increase your blood gauge by 20. So if you'll notice, though, you have a deliver a potency of 120. That's no combo. So you can see here a potency, no combo, 120. Hard Slash actually is going to hit even harder. So if you're going to err in the category of Hard Slash, but you want to be sure to be getting those combos because that's going to increase that potency chain. Otherwise, you're going to end up missing out on that. So you notice that combo bonus is also for the restoring your own HP as well. So you can't just Soul Eater your way to the top within a healing kind of mindset. You then have Flood of Darkness. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 130 to all enemies in a straight line before you. This will grant Dark Side, which is going to increase damage dealt by 10% for you, and that will last 30 seconds. It will extend Dark Side for a duration of 30 seconds to a maximum of 60 seconds, and it also shares a recast with Edge of Darkness. So this is that AoE, powerhouse of a skill. It's got to have a target. So that's, I was going to be like, let me just throw that at the camera. Then you have Blood Weapon, increases the blood gauge by 10 and restores MP upon landing weapon skills or spells. The effect does not stack when hitting multiple targets with a single attack. Then you have Shadow Wall. This is going to reduce incoming damage by 30%. It's going to last for 15 seconds, but it has a 2-minute cooldown. Now, I would highly recommend getting used to, as a tank, using your cooldowns. It's going to take pressure off your healers, allow them to put out some damage. If you think about damage as a total team DPS rather than an individual score, you're going to end up having the best time of your life in this game. Then you have Edge of Darkness. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 300. Will grant Dark Side by basically increasing your damage dealt by 10%. It will extend Dark Side, and again, it combos with that Flood of Darkness as well. So this is kind of your single target. This is your AoE version of the same ability. You have Dark Mind. This is going to reduce your magic vulnerability by 20%. You have Living Dead. This is your oh no moment. Like if you're going to say, I think I'm going to go down, this is going to let you continue to live. And if you get killed within that window where Living Dead is on, it will actually keep you alive, and you actually earn a status of Walking Dead. And basically you then need to have your HP 100% restored. Otherwise you will be knocked out. So this is somewhat helpful, but I usually macro this, and that macro again is a part of that system that, the link, so you can get to that information. Then Salted Earth, which had a big change, and no longer it needs to be macro to kind of set it to like your target. It's always going to appear at your feet. This is going to create a patch of Salted Earth, which is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 50 to any enemies who enter into this circle. Then it actually gets upgraded later, and I think you're really going to like that upgrade. Plunge is going to close the gap, but it also has a potency of 150, and at level 90 has a maximum of 2 charges. This is a great ability to weave in and out of your rotations, because again, especially if you have to run and you need to unmend, you're going to actually reduce its cooldown. So you should always have plunge available. Abysmal Drain. This is going to deal unexpected damage with a potency of 150 to all targets and enemies nearby it. It will restore your own HP with a cure potency of 200, and essentially it's going to restore MP, and it does now share a recast timer with Carve and Spit. Then Carve and Spit. This is going to deliver a threefold attack with a potency of 510. It will restore your MP, and it shares that combo with Abyssal Drain. Then you've got Blood Spiller. This is going to deliver an attack with a potency of 500, and it will cost you 50 points of your blood gauge. Quidditus here delivers an attack with a potency of 200 to all nearby enemies. Also uses that blood gauge cost of 50. Delirium is going to grant 3 stacks of Delirium. Each stack is going to allow the execution of Quidditus or Blood Spiller without the blood gauge or the black blood cost. This will restore MP when landing either weapon skill. You have the Blackest Night. Creates a barrier around your target or yourself, absorbing basically 25% of the target's your 25% of your maximum HP. When it grants Dark Arts when the barrier is completely absorbed. Basically, what happens is your Dark Arts, instead of MP, it's going to cost. It makes man, I don't know why my brain just tripped up. It makes Flood of Darkness or Edge of Darkness free if you absorb all of that shield, which is actually very handy. So you should be using the Blackest Night whenever possible, because it's not only a great shield, but it also helps you with reducing the cost of Edge of Darkness and Flood, which will actually be a part of the Dark Knight's MP spilling or draining mechanic. All right, let's continue on as clumsily as possible, shall we? The Stalwart Soul deals unexpected damage with a potency of 100 to all nearby enemies. Combos with Unleash. So again, Unleash is right here. Stalwart Soul. This is allowing you to build up even more AoE threat and hate. Looks really cool. It has a increased combo potency. It will restore MP, and it will increase your blood gauge. So you do have an AoE combo there at 72. Flood of Shadow is the upgraded version of Flood of Darkness. This deals unexpected damage of 160 to all enemies nearby. It grants Dark Side and will increase the overall duration up to a maximum of 60 seconds for you. Same thing with Edge of Shadow, same effect, except for the potency here is 460, so it just increases that, and you want to be able to use these because they are so fast to use. You can see that 1 second recast time. You can burn through so much MP, so MP management on a Dark Knight is actually very nice. That's where the Blackest Night ends up being very, very fun to reduce pressure off your healers and increase your own damage output. Then you have Dark Missionary. This reduces magic damage taken to self to nearby party members by 10%. You have Living Shadow, your level 80 ability. This is going to conjure a Simulacrum to your Dark Side to fight alongside you. Your attack potency for the Simulacrum is 300. It's going to last for 24 seconds. Will cost 50 blood gauge. And your Simulacrum is able to execute Shadowbringer, delivering an attack to all enemies in a straight line before it with a potency of 450 for the first enemy and 25% for all remaining enemies. Then you have Oblation here, learned at level 82, reduces damage taken by a party member or self by 10%. Then you have Shadowbringer, deals unexpected damage to all enemies in a straight line before you with a potency of 600. For the first enemy, 50% less for all remaining, has a maximum charge of 2, and can only be executed while under the effect of Dark Side. And then Salt and Darkness. This is the an upgraded ability as a part of your Salted Earth, learned at 86. When all enemies staying in the corrupted patch in Salted Earth take additional unexpected damage with a potency of 500 for the first enemy and 50% less for all remaining enemies. This is an extra damage boost to the skill. And so that is kind of a core aspect. You will want to check out your, obviously, rolls as a part of the tank. Rampart is going to reduce the damage taken. Low Blow is going to be a stun. Provoke is going to put you at the top of the hate list. Interject is going to interrupt the use of a target's action on occasion. It's not all actions. That's the way it is. Reprisal is fantastic. Reduces all damage dealt by nearby enemies by 10%. That's all incoming, and it is AoE. Arm's Length is going to put a slow, aka it slows down their attack. It's not their movement. Heavy in this game is movement based. Slow is it's going to slow their attack speed down, which is basically reducing incoming damage. It also nullifies knockback effects. Then you have Shirk. It's going to divert 25% of the enemy or the hate that you have to a target party member. So if you want to do a tank swap, Shirk and Provoke are going to be your best bets. that essentially should be the core aspect of it. You can go check out the traits for yourselves, but ultimately they're happening behind the scenes, and that should give you a great idea of what's going on with the skills themselves. And now I think it's time we move right into my layout. Now, the way I think of my controller layout, it ends up being kind of twofold. I end up trying to put, and it doesn't always have to be this way for every specific job out there, but I try to divert to muscle memory. Being that I play multiple jobs, multiple roles, this is more important for me as that player. But if you're just trying to like land in on one, muscle memory is going to be key, so you're not having to think about what you need to do next or what you need to press next. But also, if you end up deciding to branch out and play other roles, you want to put the similar functions in the same spot, so it becomes natural to say, oh, that's how I stun. It's always these button presses and it's a stun, so that way you're not working against yourself if you decide that you want to play something different. So just note that's a little bit of kind of my core logic. We'll start up here at the top. I have well, I'm all out now. Potions and ethers restore my HP and restore my MP. This is really helpful if I do something like Deep Dungeon, which and we do know Endwalker is getting a new Deep Dungeon. I have Dark Missionary, then I've got Living Shadow, the Blackest Night, and Blood Weapon. This is perfect for all of my cooldowns listed over here. Then here on your left hotbar, also thinking a lot of AoEs, a lot of single target on the right hotbar, Unleash, Starwelt Soul, Quietus, and Flood of Shadow, which is that, Edge of Shadow, etc. Then you have Abyssal Drain, Delirium, Salted Earth, and Shadow Wall. If you jump to this section just to kind of out of curiosity and you missed that all of this can be set via the macros, check the top pinned comment. I'm going to keep plugging that top pinned comment because it's going to save you all kinds of time. Anyway, then on the right hand side, Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, Soul Eater, the Blood Splitter, Carven Spit, Edge of Shadow, Shadowbringer, Salted Earth. So you can see here Salted Earth is in a similar position because overall, if I'm doing my AoE rotation, I'm living in this world. If I'm doing my more of a single target rotation, I'm living in this world. It feels very natural. I'm holding right trigger if I'm in the boss mode. If I'm pulling lots of ads, I'm holding down left trigger, and that ends up being how it is. On the double tap right hand side, Blood Weapon, Blackest Night, Rampart, Shadow Wall. Then I've got Living Shadow, Arm's Length, Shirk, and Interject. And that's typically what you see here on the main side of things. Jumping into my expanded cross hotbar, which actually works out where I am doing one thing or the other, I have these following skills. On the left hand side, I've got Plunge, Shadowbringer, Reprisal, Unmend, so that as I'm running up I can easily be able to pull from a range and close the gap. Blackest Night, Dark Mind, Living Dead as a macro, and then Oblation. Now, if you use the macros, note that to set your skills, they will not copy in macros. You will have to manually override those, but that is the only downside of that system. On the right-hand side, pretty much mirroring what I've got, except for I do have a low blow stun. I have Plunge, Reprisal, Unmend, which basically mirrors this without Shadowbringer. Then I've got Provoke, Grit, Living Dead, and Oblation here as well. The logic behind a lot, this is that I do have Shadowbringer here on the right hand side. So if I am engaged in a single target rotation, I can easily build this up, pop this down, get into my core rotation. If I need to, I can do this. I can pop that in and get stunned. I can close the gap, pull that all in, and don't study this as a proper rotation, just to show you the idea that I've got listed here. I can pop up here, put down some defensive buffs. Arm's Length is very valuable as a tank, just heads up. That's going to save you so much. It's going to make you the healer, Professor Love, and give you all the accommodations in the world. So I can easily bring out my Shadow. And here, and so ultimately I feel like I have access to a lot of things. Put a shield on myself, target a party member, put a shield on them as well as needed. Now, let's say I wanted to go ahead and do AoE. I can easily do that, do my Abysmal, do Flood of Shadow, Delirium. And I don't mind going over here for Delirium. It ends up working out just well because I'm not really using Delirium all that much, and I just wanted to ended up saving the space. So that is the functionality behind how I've got my hotbars set up and am using them. I would recommend always getting the use of using your Blackest Night. You will take that damage. That damage will come off, and you'll be able to get a free Edge of Shadow or Flood of Shadow accordingly. It's going to be very valuable to you as a player. Now, I think it's important we go into my HUD layout. Now, I don't play with the mini map, and there'll be a video on that here on the channel as to why in the future. But note that I have hotbar 4 here set up. If you ever go into your HUD layout, you can always click on an element, hit settings, and you can change how it's looked. You can change how it's scaled. You can change how transparent it is or whatever. Now, I am not actively clicking on those skills themselves. Those are just to help communicate cooldowns to me so that I make sure that I use them and I'm not sitting on them when playing. And so feel free to always use your UI to help feed you your rotations if you're struggling learning them as well. Here at the bottom, I got my cross hotbar. I have my expanded cross hotbar up here. I've got hotbar 3 if I want to layer anything into that. I've got my my life and whatnot, my magic. I've got my blood gauge. I got my enhancements. One of the cool things about the enhancements and enfeeblements, you can actually split them into a single element, 3 groups or 4 groups. So I have my enhancements, I've got my enfeeblements, and like up here I've got other status updates as well. I've got my enemy list, which is really important, especially as a tank, to make sure what's going on. I've got my party list over here on the right hand side, and I have my focus target bar listed down here. So at the core of it, that is what you're looking at. The target information is listed up here. And yeah, that's how I have my my HUD set out. If you guys obviously want to do anything with it, you just make it your own, make it it'll work for you, and hopefully it'll end up working out really well. Now, we talked about macros, like, again, multiple times throughout this in terms of how these are copy and paste, but you can see here Living Dead. All I'm telling them, my party, is that I'm using Living Dead, so they don't get caught off guard. Typically, if I'm using Living Dead, things have already gone wrong, and that's okay. I also have a movement macro, which I bind to my right click of the R3. Again, see the complete controller guide for more information on that. That is the macro for you right here. And somebody asked me, like, hey, why do you actually have Fenrir followed by your flying mount roulette? Well, that's just me being lazy because I don't have this mount speed unlocked in every zone yet for Endwalker. So I have Fenrir because it's faster in all the zones and I don't have that reduced speed. So that is just me being lazy. But literally, I have the mount roulette versus sprint. Gives me the ability to do a few things. And I've covered that again in detail, but just to kind of highlight it here, if I want to sprint, I can little jump, and now I'm sprinting. So it just becomes a button saver in the end. In dungeons, you're just going to straight up sprint. So note that you have access to that here as well. So I think that's essentially all the macros that I actually use here on the on Dark Knight. But if for any reason I missed any, just note they will be in the document. So just let me know in the comments if there's anything I missed in that regards. I'll be happy to keep that and update that for you. And like I said, Salted Earth literally changed. So it's just going to go at your feet and it's going to exist around you. So it no longer needs to be a macro. And Salt and Darkness is just the coolest in the thing in the world. I adore that. That is a beautiful change. So we come to the final part of the video, and if you made it all the way here, thank you so much for being here. But in terms of what I've got laid out on this job at this time of this video, you can see here some pretty basic stuff. I've got the 580 classical greatsword. Then I'm rocking, in this case, the Limbo Circlet Offending, the Inagami Circus, which is specific to the Dark Knight. The hands here is from the latest raid Pandemonium, the Van Brent's Offending. Then I've got the rest of the current 90 gear, which is specific for Dark Knight. And then over here on the right side, I am rocking the 580 crafted gear as well. So hopefully this has been a help. Nothing too fancy here on my Dark Knight. Yeah, I really love this job. I'm looking forward to hopefully some adjustments in the future. And as soon as I finish leveling up all the various tanks, I'll be able to put together some thoughts on all the tanks for you guys here in the game. I do have finished leveling the healers, and I'm also working on those guides as well. This has been a long video. My voice, I can already feel it's starting to fail, and I'll hopefully get this cut down so I'm not wasting anybody's time. If you guys enjoyed, you feel like I earn it, subscribe, like these videos, check out more content here on the channel, as that is the best way to say thank you in my personal opinion, but you can always do it in any which way that you want. I have actually no idea. I was like, you could tell a friend or you could tell your dentist. I don't ultimately know. Guys, I really appreciate you being here. Hopefully you got something good from this guide. Hopefully I will see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh, yeah. A little off topic,